Hello and welcome back to our series. In this video, we'll cover how to add overlays on top of our rendered images. Overlays are highlights that signal interactivity, making certain areas appear clickable to the user. Think about it like point and click games. Monkey Island, for example, was one of my favorites. Let's start with a quick recap on the previous episode. You identified which room you want to model, you got your floor plan, or you simply measured it yourself. You modeled your room in your preferred software. In my case, I use SketchUp. You can also model in Sweet Home 3D. And let me know in the comments if you want me to do an episode on Sweet Home 3D. And finally, you exported two renders from your scene. Awesome. So let's now talk about some overlay types. For the lampshade example, what is really happening here is that we are manipulating an image of the lampshade with the lights on top of another image with the lampshade turned off. Next, we have a text element in our digital twin that we are programmatically setting using our thermostat reading. And depending on your Home Assistant integration type, you might have a slight delay on the state update. Next, on the TV, we are setting an image this time that we did not create. Instead, we receive it from the Android Debug Bridge integration. Again, the integration does not give us an instant update, just takes a couple of seconds to refresh. And the last example is that you can also animate elements using CSS as this cold air effect we have around the thermostat. And if you are feeling overwhelmed at this point, don't be. We will start simple. Step 1, SVG. I use Inkscape to create scalable vector graphics or SVG files that we will need. I recommend you to start small, just one entity and one overlay at a time until you get a grip on this. Okay, enough talk and let's get to action. So let's open Inkscape and import our Office PNG file and set the file canvas size to match the contents. This image will act as our background or our guide. Next, let's rename the layers as follows. Let's give it a name as Office Off, and then let's also rename the layer itself, call it background, and then let's lock it. Then we will add the Office On image and we will move it to a new layer. Then we want to align these images on top of each other. Remember that both images must be equal in size and exactly aligned on top of one another. The Office On is in the foreground and the background is the Office Off. Also create a duplicate layer and lock it so that you can reuse it later for additional elements. Now let's create the lampshade element. We will create a white rectangle on top of that shade, and then we will apply it as a mask. We have to select them as follows: set mask, and as you can see, the overlay works, but it does not look good. So let's release the mask, and then let's apply some blur on that white rectangle. We can set it to 50, and then we will go back and apply the mask again. And as you can see, it looks much, much better. It's not perfect, and this is where you need to experiment for best results. And let's do one final trial. We'll set it to 75, and then we will reapply the mask, and now it is very subtle. Next, using the pen tool, we will create a path on top of the lampshade. This will serve as our highlighter, and we will create a new layer group called paths. We will draw along boundaries like this. Double click to close the loop on the path, and then we will give it an empty fill, but we will give it a stroke color such as yellow or something highly contrasting with your image. And don't worry, these colors will be manipulated later on, so they can be really anything for that matter. Fantastic. So let's now go back into the layer view and let's group these two paths into a group so that we can control them together. And let's give them a descriptive name like lampshade path under the paths group. And the overlay, let's give it another name like lampshade on under the overlay group. Great, so looks good. So the final step, which is how Home Assistant Floorplan can interact with the SVG elements, is by using IDs. So open the XML editor and assign meaningful IDs to the path and elements that we will use later for our interactions. Pay attention that the field name is ID and we don't really need this Inkscape label. We just need to make sure that the ID name is correct. And anyway, you will find all of these assets in the GitHub repo. And we are done. Just save your file and you're good to go. Now, let's take a look at a full example of how the overlays look like. And if you notice that we do not have a background, and this is completely normal, this is just to save file size and loading times. We will be setting the background later on using another mechanism in the floor plan. And that is for the next episode.